Abusuya ya mama kwa abasoro nkoso de bagana politics avenue so abusuya mama yembo nwa yensem so subscribe ya no subscribe no wa share no wa hit notification bell no so amaye sense me ba political highway ni so na ye de bi ababadom abusuya mama yenko tie yesem abusuya eye miracle Aboagye on the former aid de maba wumia abusuya eye se eye yokofo insa kan no abra na otu ne o free Ghana akodi dwumadi bi o abrochime na yokofo etumi arrest na omode ne kopi mu o omakache asisi akofa ensem bibiri aba no because of say abra na akofo na say MPP wo abem no is amount of 55 million Ghana cedi bia abra no IMCC CEO and as a coordinator say odi sika na di dwumadi bi anase omususu say sika no efa na nsase a amfon say wadi sika no ama akofa ensem bibiri aba ama sisia yukufo wakopi mu yukufo akache no ebusia MPP fo no party na na say minority fo no ebopian wo say omo kopa bill ama na so omo nim the reason why tia the yukufo nsabeka no omo ko ne yukufo chechemchem say this and this intina omo sa aka no ebusia sisia na ne lawyer your friend Atachia nso be pie mo say omo ma na nhwe ne client no ama omo deny no ama sisia do ma no kwan ama wo say wakohu ne client ebusia anwumre nsem ade abeto dwane say yokofo omo grant ne bill na bill na omo grant no omo the amount of 50 million Ghana cedi and 3 sureties and ade ato no so say omo de omo famra anse na omo agya no ebusia lawyer Miracle Aboagye ne lawyer de ashock say na enfa ana omokonya da 50 million Ghana cedis every anadwe and as if na omokonya da 3 sureties na omo own da 50 million properties na omo to media yin nti abonu hu ye pa na ashock ne pa say we break silence o da issue a yokofo de atugya no ebusia mu yenko tie nsema Miracle Aboagye ne lawyer friend Atachia tuja efa bill conditions omode ma ne client no yeba edidiaka ebeto no so.
Bail condition of 50 million is what has also been the latest element of reaction, especially from the New Patriotic Party. But as we know, as has been granted this 50 million cedis bail with 3 sureties now, does this mean he has been released from custody? From what you do know where you are now, is he still at the EOCO premises as we speak and being continuously interrogated? Has he met the bail conditions as far as you do know?
Exactly, Alfred. So we know that he's been granted bail. However, it may be difficult getting him released because a 50 million cedi bill with 3 sureties, 2 of which must be justified. And when you listen to Samuel Atachia himself brief us earlier, a few hours earlier, in that critical hour, mentions that, see, there is no way that you can get him released at this odd hour or critical hour, as he puts it, because then it will be difficult finding properties worth 50 million cedis to get him released. But the bill has been granted. Let's listen to Samuel Atachia himself talk to us what happened at the interrogation period and then the bail conditions and how we arrived at that, and even his own challenge with the amount quoted.
The past record is showing that they've invited him here and he came, and they said when they needed him, they'll call him. So I believe that democracy and the rule of law has been reversed backwards, that a man who is not running away and is decent enough to go through Kotoka International Airport, or what they call the Accra Airport, is arrested and detained all this while. I don't believe that is how we should conduct affairs. It is not proper. As if he's a common criminal, and I don't see common criminals coming through Kotoka Airport. That's the first point. The second point, which is very, very interesting, is that, look, you interrogate a man and you are running over 4 hours. Marking time until we got our turn. In the final analysis, the bail conditions are cruel and oppressive. Look at this very hour. They are about to exceed the 48 hours as enshrined in the Constitution. Where is this gentleman going to get, 3 sureties, 50 million as the bill sum, and then the properties should worth 50 million, and 2 should post that properties. How are we going to do it? So you can see clearly that the bail terms are cruel, and it's a way to punish him some more. It's not possible for us to post these securities at this critical hour. And I could say that the rule of law is sitting upside down. It's very unfortunate. So how is he going to be released? How is he going to post the bail bonds? How is he going to do it? 50 million Ghana cedis, 3 sureties, 2 to be justified. That means 2 of them should post properties. Wait, how can you at this critical hour? Where are you going to find properties worth 50 million?
I'm finding it tonight.
I'm finding it tonight.
And so, Chris, that's the concern that Samuel Atachia, private legal practitioner, raises. And the understanding is that he is the one, at least, who has been interfacing with EOCO on behalf of Dennis Miracles Aboagye. Now, Chris, stay with me because the EOCO statement gives a certain context and some detail, which we're going to be getting into shortly. And then also just put it on record that Justice Abdullahi, private legal practitioner, is going to be joining us for a conversation on this. But this is what EOCO put out. Because as of yesterday, the MPP said, look, they didn't have any idea why he was picked up. They didn't know his whereabouts. There's some detail now. EOCO arrested the former executive secretary of the Interministerial Committee on Decentralization, Dennis Edward Aboagye, also known as Miracles, and the former accountant. So it's not only Miracles Aboagye who was picked up. The former accountant of this same Interministerial Committee on Decentralization, that's Gerald Appiah. Both of them were picked up in connection with investigations into alleged financial and procurement irregularities at the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization. That was the portfolio or the position that Miracles Aboagye held for the second term of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So this is in connection with that particular position that he held. The investigation stems from a petition. So now we're getting to know where all of this is coming from. There's a petition by the current executive secretary of the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization. That's the man who succeeded Miracles Aboagye, requesting further investigation following a forensic audit that covered the period of August 2022 to 2nd February 2025. So it is within this period that the forensic audit covered. And it is the outcome of that forensic audit that's the basis for all what is happening right now. What did the forensic audit find? Reason why EOCO has made this move to, as it were, picked up Miracles Aboagye and the accountant. Investigators suspect the misappropriation, misapplication, diversion, and theft of approximately 55 million Ghana cedis in public funds. The suspects are being investigated for 1, conspiracy to steal, 2, stealing, 3, using public office for personal profit. Other alleged offenses include causing financial loss to the state, dissipation of public funds, defrauding by false pretenses, and money laundering, as well as other suspected offenses. That's why you hear Samia Wuku say that, they've observed for the most part of the EOCO's work in the recent past that anytime they pick somebody up, the first charge, you will definitely find money laundering in there. But then again, there has to be basis, there has to be reason for why Dennis Miracles Aboagye and the accountant in this question, as we speak, are being, as it were, accused of money laundering after this forensic audit occasioned by the successor of Miracles at the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization, covering that period of 2022 to 2025. EOCO also disclosed that Gerald Appiah, and this is very important, Gerald Appiah, the accountant who was picked up with Miracles, has voluntarily begun refunding some of the funds, the money under investigation, but stressed that the repayment do not amount to an admission of guilt or absolve him of criminal liability. So this is it as well. This is another thing we learned from the EOCO statement. That yes, this gentleman, Gerard Appiah, the former accountant, he has started paying back some of the money, which is in question, the 55 million, whatever went to him. He started paying back, but that is not in any way going to shield him of any, as it were, criminality or amount to an admission of guilt. So that is also another big development from the EOCO statement as we got earlier today. The arrest of Miracles follows significant new findings relating to suspected fraud and theft that emerged during the investigation last week. EOCO had earlier placed Miracles Aboagye on a stop order. And this is another thing we found out as well, that earlier, Dennis Miracles Aboagye was on a stop order to prevent him from traveling while investigations continued. But he had already left Ghana before the order could be enforced. And this is because prior to this weekend, when Dennis Miracles Aboagye was reported to have traveled, he had visited the offices of EOCO a couple of months ago. So this is not fresh. Apparently, they have been investigating this matter for a while. But the reason for this recent or latest arrest 2 days ago was as a result of fresh information that EOCO discovered after this forensic audit. So that's why EOCO said, within that period of that investigation over the last couple of months, they had earlier placed Miracles on a stop order to prevent him from traveling. But on record, the stop order was not enforced when Miracles traveled. It was granted after. So he was arrested upon his return at Kotoka International Airport. So not when he was leaving. So earlier, there were reports that he was leaving the country and that's when he was arrested. No, now we know that he was arrested after he returned to the country. EOCO states that the investigations are ongoing, searches are being conducted, and both suspects are entitled to bail, and what just happened now in accordance with the Constitution and the laws of Ghana, while the office continues its investigations. So that's what we do know from this EOCO statement. And let me bring in Justice Abdullahi, a private legal practitioner, and Chris, stay with me. Justice Abdullahi, thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. First of all, I want to find out from you, based on the information as we have now from the EOCO statement, the concerns that were raised prior to this as we have it, and how things have played out today. How does all of this, what's your reading of this particular situation regarding Dennis Miracles Aboagye and then the former accountant Gerard Appiah, who are having to answer questions regarding these issues that EOCO has outlined, money laundering and so on?
Right. So, Alfred, I do not think that, first off, anyone has a right to determine when he is arrested, how he is arrested, and the circumstances of his arrest. No one has a right to determine that. No political party, no individual, and obviously no groups of persons or associations do have the right to determine when a member or a person is arrested and how and when. These circumstances cannot be determined by anyone apart from the arresting authority. I think that it needs to be made clear abundantly. However, what is of concern for me and I believe to many watchers and indeed other interested persons in this field has always been whether or not the law is followed in effecting the arrest, and then also whether or not there is some level of disproportionality in the arrest that is effected. These are and all these fall within the scheme of the law. So long as the law is followed in by way of expected, and then the proportionality of it, I do not think that anybody has a right to complain when he's arrested. I mean, it's not as if people are arrested for not doing anything wrong. Of course, there are sometimes mischief makers, and sometimes when the political authorities would want to use you for as a scapegoat or to just teach you pepper. Maybe sometimes they could fall outside of the law to do all kinds of things. But I do not think that the issues culminating in the arrest is faulty in the case of Miracles. I do think, however, that considering the statement, if I'm not mistaken, that he had returned from the jurisdiction. I mean, from outside of the jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's true. He had. This is the part of it that indeed he had returned from the trip, and because EOCO at the time had not, if they had earlier placed him on a stop order to prevent him from traveling, while investigations continued, but he had already left Ghana before the order could be enforced. So you're right. Yes, he returned from the trip. But Justice Abdullahi, hold on a bit for me. Let me round up with Christian Yale at the EOCO office as we speak. Christian, you see what is happening now regarding Samuel Atacha and the details he's giving to us, and then also we understand some other lawyers who are coming to give some assistance to Dennis Miracles Aboagye as we speak. What are you reading? What's going to be happening in the hours ahead?
Yes, it presupposes that he is still in custody because he is unable to meet the bail condition. So that is another conversation that we may have to have from now to see what will be the way forward and when the NPP would get to secure this bail condition, the 3 sureties with the 2 to be justified, the 50 million cedis, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm sure that from now, after this discussion on Ghana Tonight, we can still keep tabs on it and then engage the lead counsel to Dennis Miracles Aboagye. But that is it. It's been an all-day affair, and we are wrapping up our coverage here. We've been here from 8 a.m. till now, you can imagine. I've been doing this with Lord Selikem Desechi. Back to you in studios, Alfred.
Christian Yale and Lord, thank you. Thank you so much for the good stuff over there and the great coverage. And we're going to be keeping an eye on how the night will be. And tomorrow morning we will be there as well. That is if he is still there. But then again, his lawyers have indicated the difficulty in meeting that bail condition, 50 million cedis, 3 sureties to be justified at this time of the day. But Justice Abdullahi, you were just talking about the mode of arrest. Exactly what is wrong from where you sit with the mode of arrest. He was arrested upon his return at the airport. What exactly is the issue there?
And clearly meaning that his arrest could have been effected in a more civilized, in a more prudent manner that would not have sparked these kinds of controversies and debates. Because if the person has been under investigation for well over a year and he has been cooperating throughout this period, and he hasn't done anything to suggest that he is escaping any possible prosecution, and in fact, he has left the country and is on his way back, why the need in rushing to arrest him? What could he have done so wrong that he couldn't have been called to report to the EOCO police station and then possibly detained if he came, or arrested formally when he comes? But having said that, we are told that he had been reporting to the EOCO. If he has been, a number of questions arise. Was he reporting as a person of interest to EOCO, or he was reporting because he was under arrest? Either of these would determine whatever follows going forward. Because typically, if you are under arrest, then obviously your right to leave the jurisdiction, sometimes even within the country, your right to leave the region that you reside in could be curtailed. And any breach of it could result in your detention. Alfred, I need to point out that I disagree with all these conduct taking place without the supervision of the court, i.e., without a formal court order. I do not think that these rights these conduct are right. It's been going on, admittedly, for well over a century, and I think it's possibly a worldwide thing. That arresting authorities would usually curtail your rights in one way or the other within a particular space and time, and without a court order. But I think the right thing to do is to seek a formal court order in the event that you place a person under arrest, so that you can curtail appropriately his right. Otherwise, our security agencies, I mean, we already know that they are the biggest abusers of our constitutional right and privileges. And so, and this has not been the first time. They will continuously do so. They do not respect your 48-hour rule. They do not respect your rights when being arrested. They do not respect your right to be admitted to bail without taking money and beating you up, torturing you in a lot of ways. These are continuous matters we keep alerting our security agencies to be mindful of, and that we are no longer under military regime. So long as we are under democratic dispensation, rights and privileges as enshrined in our constitutions and other laws must always be respected. It does appear that our security agencies generally have not come to terms with this, and they still operate as though they still live under Stone Age, and they do things the same way they used to do under military regimes. They don't care. I mean, and mention names: the National Security, BNI, the Police Service, EOCO. You can't just believe how they will treat you, as if no lawyer exists within their fold. Yet. And they'll keep torturing people, beating people up, and abusing the rights of others and all of that. This has been consistent and persistently is what we see. And I think that we have to educate them to stop those things. They are not fit for purpose. We need to realize that we are in a different era. And unfortunately, sometimes you go to court and you don't even get the necessary desired redress. In the face of these constant and unwarranted abuses of the rights of the Ghanaian by our security agencies, who, in fact, are supposed to be the protectors of our rights. They are, on the contrary, and completely to the opposite, the ones who constantly abuse the rights of the Ghanaian. And it must stop. There must be an end to unlawful conduct.
Justice Abdullah, I appreciate you for this. Thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts on how things are playing out. He's a private legal practitioner, also a lecturer at the UPSA Law Faculty. Thank you, Justice Abdullah, for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. We're keeping an eye on the happenings at EOCO as we speak regarding whether or not Janice Miracles Aboagye will be able to meet that bail condition of 50 million cedis, 3 sureties to be justified before midnight, or he would have to spend the night at EOCO. But whatever the case might be, we're keeping an eye on how things are playing out there.
Abusia, when they semi course or political so a year big condition is the ma a Miracle Aboagye former aide at the ma Baumia Amasisiano any lawyer was shocked say you could for we are more an idiot. I said Modi a year and ye demon I say any bribi and a yes it's really a shocking ye pan. Abusia so subscribe and not subscribe no one share no one hate to notification bell so am I send me by political highway so near the B about Abusia, ya